there's some humor points for me. There's some points, of contention. And then there are, for those of you that know me, there are some points brought up or said without any pushback that where literally a total and outright lie is taken as historical fact and just kind of people breeze right by it. It's like a one hoof Gish Gallop. And for those of you that don't know, a Gish Gallop is a debate trick where the gig is when it's your turn to debate, you do 15 lies in a row. You just blather out a bunch of unsupported claims that are wrong, and it in such a fury that your opponent will never be able to have the time to respond to all of them, except if they gainsay, which in a debate will lose them points. So they can just go, that was a lie, 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 that was a lie. All right. And then kind of punt it back in your direction, and you have to, I suppose, defend your point. I guess that's the only way to do a Gish Gallop. But most of the time what happens is you do 15 lies, and the person you're talking to in front of an audience, and the audience's kind of attention span goes to, they'll only really have time to defend or push back on the last couple of claims, or the first one and the last one. And in the mind of the viewer, what happens is, and the audience members and other folks, is that, well, you went after the first thing they said, and you went after the last thing they said, but there were like 13 things in between those two things, and therefore you didn't go after those because they must be true. That's what a Gish Gallop is for. It entirely explains how Jimmy Dore talks and how Russell was on Real Time with Bill Maher. That's the trick. Just ramble out a bunch of shit, and then the other person you're talking to or on a panel with will never be able to address all of them. So, because there just isn't enough time in the show, and you've eaten it up by just throwing like an appendix at someone and saying, assume the book exists. Like you wrote a table of contents and you went, I wrote a reference book. Like there's no pages, there's no references in this. There's no details in this. Yes, there is. Look at the headings. The headings prove that what does that say? It says chapter 1. So, but there is no chapter. Doesn't make any difference. It says chapter 1, there's the title, and on to chapter 2. That's how it works. They overwhelm either the audience's attention span, the amount of time that they have on stage, or this subtle propaganda-ish effect that if you don't push back on something, it must be true. Because you're so fired up about one or two of the other details. And that and before we get to that because I want to talk about Matt Taibbi and what's his name, Schellenberger's opening statements that they have. But we cannot just move on, apparently. And if this is long, again, I reserve the right to bail out on this. I'm not going to edit other people's pieces, but if I get halfway through a fucking clip and I'm like, we can go. And it might happen. But remember how much fun we had watching people watch video and then say they saw things they didn't see? I have to say, we went through Greg Kelly, we went through Glenn Beck, we went through Ben Shapiro and others, even Tucker himself, who, by the way, set it up. So it's a different kind of lie coming from him. But my favorite thing about the Ben Shapiro thing was he was literally watching video, saying he was seeing something he was not seeing because the narration said something was happening. Like the words said something was happening. The video shows something diametrically opposed to that. Specifically in the case of the narration says they even unlocked doors for him. And everybody looks at the two cops that are shadowing, Chandley here. And he opens the door for himself. And they follow him through. Or one of them actually stands there. We don't even get to see from the cut because I want to stick to what's actually in the footage. The cop stands there like, where the fuck are you going? Go back out this way. And they cut before the rest of that happens. They also, because of trick editing, make a door that opens this way and looks totally different from a door that opens that way appear to be the same door, but only to stupid people. Which brings us to these dipshits. Now, I'm pretty sure, and there's going to be
Did you know that drinking warm water before bed can help shrink a swollen prostate?
No, it can't.
Thousands of men are...
No, Max Blumenthal from the Gray Zone is with us. Hi, Max.
Yeah, Max is here because, oh, Jesus Christ, this clip's a half hour long. We're not going, we'll do 5 minutes. I don't even need, I want to see if he actually watches this video.
Hey, Jimmy, how you doing?
So, I saw...
He's a vision in baby blue. This is, did he go to Miami after he went to DC?
The Tucker Carlson segment.
I mean, the monochromatic thing, that's a style choice. I gotta give you that. Unless it's a camera problem. But I think he's getting ready for the Villages. I think Jimmy's this is his way of announcing his retirement to the Villages.
He did on Monday. And I want to just go over it with you. You were there, right? You were there on January 6th, Max?
Yes, he was one of the Antifa leading the maggots there. You were there. You I'm not getting you in legal trouble, all right? Am I? I thought for a second there, I actually thought he was like, you were there, right? In Tucker's studio?
I was the Jewish QAnon alternative shaman.
So there's a lot of video that has been released.
I think that was an attempt at a joke. And it's kind of a dick move for Jimmy not even to recognize it. Now, it might be because Jimmy is under the misapprehension that he has a sense of humor when he absolutely does not, and thinks he's a comedian when he isn't. As we saw when he went to the pro-Russia flail fest in D.C. But that's kind of a dick move to your guest. You don't even have a... like, you're not even going to throw him one of those? Just fuck him, right?
That released to Tucker Carlson. He is the #1 news show in America, so why wouldn't you? So McCarthy, the speaker...
Why wouldn't you? He's the #1 news show. That's a great description. Jimmy, nothing has been more progressive than your relationship with Tucker Carlson. Now, I appreciate you picking a shot of Tucker where he looks like a weird blow-up doll version of himself smelling his own farts. That's weird, but whatever. I'm not here to yuck your yum. But I think it's very curious. The #1 news show, first of all, Jimmy has to know that in court filing after court filing, when they've gotten in trouble at Fox News, they insist that their nighttime programming is entertainment, not news. Especially Tucker. They specifically made it in the case of his show. So, fuck off with that nonsense. Secondly, no, you don't give it to one person in that case. Especially an opinion, or like, by the way, do you think... Now, Rachel Maddow beat Tucker Carlson multiple times. She's just not on regularly anymore. She just does Mondays. And on Mondays, she kicks his ass. And this was on a Monday. That's one of the reasons why they released it, was because people jump over and watch Rachel, right? They actually tune in and the numbers go up because she's going to be on. Do you think that at the height of Rachel's numbers, Jimmy would be okay with Nancy Pelosi or even Kevin McCarthy in this situation giving this footage just to Rachel Maddow? I'll wait.
Republican speaker now has gotten control of that stuff instead of the Democrats and Republicans establishment.
I see. Kevin McCarthy is not the establishment. He's a rogue.
Now they gave over having access to those tapes of what happened.
They gave over having access to those tapes.
And on January 6th. Now they gave him to Tucker Carlson. And here he makes his case that the January 6th committee is a bunch of liars who concocted a narrative.
While lying and concocting a narrative, which anyone can see, unless you want to be back on his show, I guess.
If there's one takeaway from the corpus of footage that we spent 3 weeks looking at, it's that the January 6th committee lied.
Okay.
Its members are liars. And as the result,
#1 news.
Course of liberties in this country were eroded. People went to prison. They're in prison as of right now, unjustly. So those lies had consequences.
By the way, define unjustly. They all had bail hearings. They all have lawyers. They all have evidence. They've had evidentiary hearings. to see if their case could proceed. What's unjust? Explain why it's unjust for some of the people that attacked police officers to go the fuck home and some of them to still be in jail. Some of them are still in jail. Why would that be? You have access to the transcripts.
So that's a big statement. That's the number one newsman in America.
Yes. Tucker Carlson, the Walter Cronkite of the social media age, the most trusted man in news. Is Jimmy just entering his kind of grandpa yelling at the TV phase?
Or he's the host of the number one news show in America.
Yeah, and what's the difference? I mean, what's the difference between being the number one newsman and the number one news host? You know what I mean? 6 of one, half dozen of another.
And I saw an article that said more Democrats watch Tucker Carlson in the demo than watch Rachel Maddow. So it's a very popular news show with...
Yes, hate watch him maybe. And by the way, you did read that. That's just like silliness.
Right, with Americans. And he just said everybody on the January 6th, one thing we know for sure is that they're all liars.
Well, yeah, and that's all I need. Shit. I mean, I don't even know why he needs to play clips. He said it. We believe it. That's how the news works. Jimmy Dore says Tucker Carlson is the most trusted name in news, and anything he says, you can take it to the bank. And he said they were liars. So what do you want to see? Unedited video with time code on it? I mean, honestly, it's kind of un-American.
That's the number one news show. Turning the narrative completely 180.
All right. Well, the narrative, perhaps. I would just say floating a contradictory narrative. Because this dickhead isn't actually going to make the case that he's not making selective edits, right?
And so here he is. He makes his case. This is his general point is that we've been lied to and only shown a sliver. And here's his case.
Okay, here's his case. Hold on. Does he just play the whole... Hold on. Is he talking during this?
Outlet in America for the last 2 years. There's a reason for that.
By the way, Aaron Mate did this about a week ago or whenever we did one of the videos. I was filling in where he was... I forget what clip he was playing now because all their bullshit blurs together. But playing it relatively uninterrupted is weird. I mean, I would get a copyright strike if I did that. You have to stop every so often. Some people get after me because I stop too often, and I understand that. But at the same time, if I don't stop often enough, I can get a copyright strike for the clips that I use because I'm not adding or critiquing or modifying it and changing the product into something else that is my own. So there's one of two things happening here. Either Jimmy is just blind to that fact and doesn't kind of give a shit because he's a millionaire at this point, and if one of his videos gets demonetized, it's worth it to get in with his good buddy Tucker, or Tucker Carlson has whitelisted Jimmy Dore's show so he can play whatever he wants from Tucker's show without getting a copyright strike.
But it turns out there's quite a bit of video.
Look at this. Whoa. This is quite a bit of video. Yes, because we've never seen people walking around like this. And look at his fucking face. Like, huh? Same shit we saw from Benjamin.
You haven't seen. And that video tells a very different story about what happened on January 6th.
There's a man helping. There's a guy. He's picking something up after someone else broke it.
More than 40,000 hours of surveillance.
Again, what was that? That guy was fixing something. Like, fuck out of here. Literally, a woman was bleeding out of her nose at that moment and dying.
Surveillance footage from in and around the Capitol have been withheld from the public. And once you see the video, you'll...
The incredulity, the just lack of critical thought going on here in all of these assholes is a fucking miracle. And let me, in case anybody's getting like wound up and bound up about this Tucker Carlson shit, let me tell you a couple things. One is, it's not going to amount to a hill of beans. It's a bunch of bullshit. It will be a puff point, and then collapse because it has no substructure. There is no foundation. It's garbage. And the worst part of it is that dickheads like him and the people who watch his show are going to be very disappointed because they're going to believe what he believes he's being told to believe. And then when it doesn't turn out, when nothing fucking happens as a result, they're going to go, there's just no justice in the world, right? You can just watch it fucking happen.
Understand why. Taken as a whole, the video record.
Is this what it's like when Jimmy's just at home watching Tucker alone? Whoever's in the fucking easy chair next to him. What?
Does not support the claim that January 6th was an insurrection.
See, he says it. He says it, and it makes his eye twitch like Herbert Lom. I don't know why, but what more do you need? Tucker said it doesn't support the narrative. Cogito ergo sum, e pluribus unum, coitus interruptus. It doesn't, it's true. Now, just match. I'm doing a citizen's divorce.
In fact, it demolishes that claim.
Huh? He said, did you hear it? He said it. Look at his face. Huh? Didn't you hear it? Tucker Carlson, the most trusted man in news, with the most popular news show in the country, said it demolished in there. Demolished. He used the word. Get the fuck out of here.
And that's exactly why the Democratic Party and its allies in the media prevented you from seeing it. By controlling the images you were allowed to view from January 6th,
yeah, this isn't helping your case much.
They controlled how the public understood that day. They could lie about what happened, and you would never know the difference. Those lies
Jimmy's a little bummed out by this footage.
Had a purpose. They created a pretext for a federal crackdown on opponents of the...
Look at this. Look at this. Ah, ha, ha. They created a pretext for a crackdown. Big government coming for your freedoms.
Uniparty in Washington.
Look at his, like, it's like he's discovered something. Like, he just pulled a fucking golden nugget out of his butt.
Our office wanted to ensure that there was shock and awe that we could charge as many people as possible.
The first thing you notice.
And I just want to, this is probably going to seem outrageous to some people.
No. I don't know what he's going to say because I don't pre-watch this shit because who has that kind of time or tortures themselves that way? But no. We're just going to be embarrassed for you. And it's going to be just kind of like another slice of dumb.
But if Bernie Sanders became president, this is the exact kind of shit they would have did to him.
Okay. All right. First of all, what does that even mean? Secondly, do you think maggots would have attacked the Capitol if Bernie Sanders had become president? Is that your what? All right, you guys. I literally tried to make too much sense of it. I think that was my mistake. It was just I was confusing blather with sort of a point.
Federal crackdown on opponents of the Uniparty
right.
in Washington.
Our office wanted to ensure that there was.
Oh, by the way, the last time Jimmy talked about Bernie Sanders in a clip that we viewed on this show, he referred to him as Biden's butt boy. So I don't know what group would have done him in because apparently he's just as establishment as anybody.
Shock and awe that we could charge as many people as possible.
The first thing you notice.
And I just want to, this is probably going to seem outrageous to some.
Oh, by the way, congratulations, Jimmy, for using the word outrageous so everyone knows you're full of shit. If you'll recall, outrageous is a term oftentimes that politicians will use when they are accused of something. That's outrageous because it's a non-denial denial. And I don't know why Jimmy has brought this up, why he's using it in particular, but interestingly enough, it fits.
People. But if Bernie Sanders became president, this is the exact kind of shit they would have did to him. They would have russiagated him for 4 straight years. And
I'm sorry. Does Based on what? Would Bernie Sanders have hired Paul Manafort, a man who effectively loans out his crippled wife to men he calls on, from Craigslist ads to come over and fuck her while he masturbates in the corner? Check his daughter's texts if you don't know what I'm talking about. A man who ordered snipers for Yanukovych in Ukraine on Euromaidan to create and sent agent provocateurs into the crowd to give them a pretext to open fire on civilians in Ukraine, which, by the way, Jimmy thinks they deserved because anybody who was protesting that day was clearly a Nazi. And even the ones who were shooting back at the people who were shooting them, I suppose, or fighting or just bleeding to death. That was so Bernie would have hired Paul Manafort. He would have hired George Papadopoulos. He would have hired Carter fucking Page, who was a physical courier would have been a physical courier for Bernie's campaign, bringing papers back and forth to Russia and to Russian people who magically show up at the DNC, stand backstage like they did at the RNC for Trump. What using what? What is the premise? Commie? Is that the idea? They would have Russiagated him because of the USSR that no longer exists? P.S. Fuck Carter Page.
And then they would have made his followers look like violent insurrectionists.
Yeah. Let's just say they wanted to. Let's play it along. Let's say desperately the CIA, the FBI, the DOD, the EPA, the Burger King, everybody in on it. And their goal is, get all the pussy hat women and all the, anti-racism marchers, all the people that would be on Bernie's side. And Bernie loses fair and square in a second election. And then Bernie Sanders follows up that loss, by the way, apparently to another Democrat, by parking his ass in front of the White House and telling his followers, you're going to go up to the White House, and I'm going to go up there with you. I'll be right behind you, and you're going to have to fight like hell, and we're not going to have a country left. And then he tries to choke a Secret Service agent and gets taken back to the White House, to the White House, where he watches an insurrection happen on TV. And can I get another soda? And he's just eating popcorn and masturbating to the fact that his little like Rose Twitter folks are trying to kill cops. That's how this plays out. The fuck are you talking about?
And they have to be shunned from polite society because they're the only people standing up against the uniparty. That's what would have happened to Bernie Sanders.
This is just fucking stupid. Yeah, so it would have played out exactly the same way. Because that's the thing about the Illuminati. They only have one script.
He wasn't even president. They said his followers hate women.
They said his followers hate women. They said that he hate women. They said he was a Russian. He was getting propped up by the Russians.
He was getting propped up by the Russians. Nobody said he was a Russian. What are you talking about? Of course they were inflating his campaign. It's not his fault.
Go, Max, you want to say something?
Remember?
Yeah, quick, Max, say something. Save Jimmy from this idea that Bernie would have hired Paul Manafort and then led an insurrection and choked a Secret Service agent after he lost his second election as a one-termer.
The chair throwing incident in Nevada.
They made them out to be violent at a bullshit caucus in Nevada. They said that they were throwing chairs, and then senators from the Democratic Party were flipping them off, and they said they were doing that because they were being violent, which was all made up. They just made it up.
Okay. So from that situation, that caucus, which, caucus is going to caucus in Nevada, you're extrapolating that there would have been a Jan 6 like the uniparty Illuminati, whatever the fuck is going on, the lizard people, the baby spine juice drinkers that Alex Jones has warned us about. Those folks they just had Jan 6 penciled in. It didn't matter who was president. They, the thems, them. Who are they? Nobody knows who is they. Only they know who is them. Those folks were going to trigger a thing like this no matter what, because they're afraid that someone who ultimately would do what the majority of the things that Biden is doing, say, for example, would get in. They had to stop that because it's an 80-20 rule.
Just like this January 6th stuff is largely made up.
No, it isn't.
Not all of it.
Not all of it. Yes, some of it's true. The dude who, the 140 or so injured police officers, the 2 dead women, that's real. The people who shit in the rotunda, the stolen laptop that the woman tried to take from Nancy Pelosi's office and sell to the fucking Russians, the guns, that's real. But
there were some violence happening there, but
some, mainly just so that they could breach and push the cops back. And then once they had injured those police officers, at that point, what are they going to do? Punch each other? The violence dropped down a lot.
Watch what Tucker has to say.
Watch. What a great sentence. Watch what Tucker has to say. Narration over video.
Viewing the full video record of January 6th.
Hey, look who's not being, look who that is. This is great. Thanks, Jimmy. You actually picked up a piece of footage. Hold on. Boink. Let me back up. Jimmy picked up a piece of footage that fucks Glenn Beck, Ben Shapiro, and Tucker Carlson all in one row, like a human centipede with a giant, minotaur dick, just all the way through and out the other mouth. Remember how, and you guys remember this from yesterday, remember how the story was, and Ben Shapiro even said this, and Glenn Beck said it, he repeated it multiple times. The cops ushered him into the Capitol. They brought him, they invited him in. Thank you. They waved him in. Remember that? Remember that part? Remember how they didn't have the footage in that they were looking at that showed him entering?
Largely made up.
Let's see the footage of him entering. Is he entering by himself, guided by police officers, or is he entering through a finally breached door with a bunch of other people as other people climb in through the windows?
Not all of it. There were some violence happening there.
Some, yeah.
But
hi. Hold on one second.
Watch what Tucker has to say.
Watch what Tucker has to say. By the way, maggot hat, maggot hat, maggot hat, maggot hat. Do you see any cops? Anybody see any cops in this area? Is there a cop shadowing and guiding and leading, helping the QAnon shaman? Anybody? Any fucking see anybody there? Yeah? No? You see these people busted through a fucking window. You see these people who kicked in this fucking door. You see people go through the other window. And then look who comes in with this group of people.
The full video.
Look who busted down, look at this shit. Look at that.
Record of January 6th.
Yeah.
Is just how.
Look, here's a maggot over here with his hand up, guiding people in. Bunch of fucking red hats. And there he is. There's the QAnut. There he is. Look at this. Look at it. It's just, it's fun, isn't it? It's fun when they fuck up their own narrative right in front of you.
Many people entered the Capitol building that day. Hundreds and hundreds of people, possibly.
Uh-huh. And everyone who came in that didn't commit violence got in by benefiting from violence. I don't know why That thought seems impossible to fucking grasp for these assholes. And Twisted Coconut, thank you so much for the super chat. And Triva, thank you as well. And Dr. Kev's gal, damn it, I'm late again. Okay, thank you for the cover charge. I appreciate that. I'm fine. The video is too loud. Okay, beg your pardon. I will. Okay, hold on. I'll try and fix that. How about that? I'll knock a little off.
Thousands over the course of about 2 hours. The crowd was enormous.
Wow.
A small percentage of them were hooligans. They committed vandalism.
Ruffians.
You've seen their pictures again and again. But the overwhelming majority weren't. They were peaceful. They were orderly and meek.
Look at this guy. He's walking around, looking through drawers, stealing, just taking things. You know, look, if 5 people break into your house and only one of them kicks the door in, the other 4, I mean, arguably have squatters' rights. They just got lost and followed the wrong dude into a building.
These were not insurrections.
Do we all meet at Jimmy's house? Because apparently the only person he thinks should get in trouble is the person who kicks his door in. I do not recommend this, by the way.
Insurrectionists. They were sightseers.
Sightseers. Then they could have come back 2 fucking days later. Sightseers.
Footage from inside the Capitol overturns the story you've heard about January 6th.
He said overturns the story you've heard. Look at my face. Huh? Did you hear what he said? Don't you believe him? He's the most trusted man in news.
Protest.
I love how that's supposed to convince us. Asshole, we've all seen the clips.
Queue up in neat little lines. They give each other tours outside the speaker's office.
Tours. Tours. And if she was in here, we could just fucking kill her. But we're going to have to keep looking. Yeah. That's the tour. Next up, everybody, we're walking, and everybody hang Mike Pence. There we go.
Office. They take cheerful selfies and they...
Cheerful selfies. While Roseanne Boylan and Ashley Babbitt are being taken away on fucking gurneys while people are doing hopeless CPR on them, they take cheerful selfies while someone's building a gallows outside. They take cheerful selfies while someone is taking a shit in the rotunda.
Smile. They're not...
Look at that. Look how... I don't know what that's supposed to mean. He does this a lot. Are we supposed to... Is it supposed to be enough? Is Jimmy Dore under the is it that Jimmy Dore thinks that when Tucker speaks, it's self-evidently true?
Not destroying the Capitol. They obviously revere the Capitol. They're there because they...
Look at it, every time he says something positive about the people who currently, by the way, are avoiding metal detectors for a good reason. He's, we didn't have to go through one when we went to the Trump rally, so we don't sure shit not going to go through one here.
Believe the election was stolen from them. They believe in the system.
So now you're not allowed to believe that, and we're not allowed to say that on YouTube. We're not saying that the 2020 election was in any way anything but above board and perfect. But the 2016 election, you could say it was stolen, and any nefarious thing you want to say about it, it's okay because Donald Trump won. So you can say that all day long. In fact, they still say it.
All right. First of all, people talk about 2016. Some people do. In the same way that they talk about 2000, Gore v. Bush, where Gore ultimately, when they finally counted the votes in Florida, prevailed by about 500 votes and technically would have won the presidency. But George Bush was sworn in and was president for 8 years because of it and got reelected afterwards, even with that hanging over him. But a lot of people teeth grind about it and go over it because in actual fact, there was fuckery going on. In actual fact, Hillary Clinton beat Donald Trump by 3 million votes, and 72,000 TYT and Jimmy Dore viewers, seriously, in 3 different states, held their nose or didn't mark for Hillary or just fucked off entirely or directly, in the case of Jimmy Dore, voted for Trump. And in the process of doing that, she lost. So people are going, yeah, it's lame that she won the popular vote by 3 million votes and then lost the election. That seems wrong. Trump definitely had help and people carrying his balls, but he was elected. He was sworn in. Once he was sworn in, and once it was certified, there, like for a week, maybe people were like, wait a second, people were denied the right to vote. They were denied, but nobody took action. Nobody took violent fucking action. Nobody post 2016. There was a women's march. I know I was there amongst a lot of other people. That's the big pussy hat march that happened after he was elected. But none of them charged the fucking Capitol and tried to stop the actual counting of the Electoral College votes.
That it was a coup by the Russian government. That's what they say about 2016.
Can I say that George W. Bush stole it from Gore now that we like George W. Bush?
I'm not sure if
we do.
You can say that either now. But anyway, so just so you know, those people, they were bad because they thought that...
No. Oh, no. Asshole, no. No one in that group was bad because they thought anything. I got news for you. The people who never went to the Capitol, who listened to Trump that day and then fucked off and had a fucking bacon-wrapped hot dog and then went to see the Lincoln Memorial and went the opposite direction or went back to their fucking hotel or drove back home or flew back to Indiana or whatever the fuck, those people thought the same thing as those assholes. None of them are in trouble for anything that they think. No one anywhere in the Jan 6ers that are in jail right now, there's not a single fucking thought crime in that fucking place. There's a lot of people who created property damage, actively encouraged others to violence, participated in violence themselves at the same time. There's a lot of that because of what they did. And what they more aptly, I suppose, they attempted to do in a lot of cases. Not a single fucking person in that place is bad because of what they think. They're stupid. I don't like them. But that's not why we have a problem with them. You can think whatever the fuck you want, but you vote, and then you get back to fucking living as an American, and don't try to, because you lost, attack the fucking Capitol. But may I say that I don't think Jimmy's smart enough to do propaganda in these particular cases. I think this is a knee-jerk, idiotic reaction from him. But insofar as Kurt goes, and insofar as Jimmy's audience goes, this is this acts as a propaganda moment, because the idea he's trying to plant in somebody's head, if you're listening, is not that these people are in trouble for what they did and who they did it to, but just for being, just their thinking, just their spirit, just their ideas. The establishment hates their ideas.
That the election was stolen from them. Now, when the Democrats, for the 4 years previous to them, thought the election was stolen from them, they were good.
No, there was no value judgment on that part of it. It's what actions you take that matter in this situation. I can agree or disagree with someone's ideas. I can think they're good or bad in the abstract, but they don't become technically good or bad the way actions do. When you act on belief, and especially when your actions when you act on belief are dangerous and end up injuring other human beings, or passively, which is even more fucking gross, passively enjoying a stroll through the Capitol that was gifted to you by a bunch of other people who think the way you do, beating cops until there's no one in your way.
That's good. These people are bad.
No, again, it's not. Look at him trying to make it
for
a thought
thinking
crime.
The same thing. Oh,
nope. Nobody gives a shit what they think. It's what they did.
Okay, here we go.
Here's the man you've heard referred to as the QAnon shaman outside the Senate chamber.
By himself. Not guided in by cops, wandering around. They find him at one point. They start shadowing him once they're clearing other people out. Notice the total lack of cops around him right now.
These are not rioters. These are people who wandered over from a political rally.
Look at Jimmy. They wandered. Oh my fucking God. All right. We've seen all this shit before. We covered all this video. It's just him. It's just going to be him going. the whole fucking time. Anyways, I wanted to touch base on that because, again, what you get from Jimmy is the same thing you get from Glenn Beck. It's the same thing you get from Ben Shapiro, and is ultimately the goal of what Tucker was putting out, which is, and it's insofar as an exercise in propaganda. It is in many ways a masterwork at controlling dunderheads. Like, you're not going to fall for it if you're at all dubious. But if you want it to be true, he's just going to just ejaculate, his narrative right in your fucking ear, because he's going to show you video that contradicts what he is actually saying. And yet, his followers, his viewers, like Jimmy, like Ben, like these other people, are going to repeat what he said and believe they saw what he said. Now, he didn't invent this tactic. It happens. It's used by, like evil governments and dictators and cult leaders and that kind of shit. It has for a long time. And it's something to be aware of. As a matter of fact, when you're watching the next documentary you watch, or the next true crime show, or what have you, anything that you're kind of like dubious about the take of, it'll probably be easier to spot. But watch how many times the images on screen are to reinforce a feeling or a narrative that the narrator is trying to set up, whether it does or not. I mean, look at 2,000 Mules. Trump and many people in his circle believe that the backpack guy who was stuffing votes in the ballot box, in the drop box after dark multiple times, they think that is a real person. They think that's footage because in the context of the narrative that Dinesh does, he's saying that we've got this government footage, and then he cuts to a reenactment without saying there's a reenactment, without a disclaimer, an asterisk in the corner, the word reenactment, or even until the end, you don't even see that person was played by an actor. And they've got 3 angles of the same activity, like he's dumping it in once. They shot it from 3 different angles. They go to each different angle at different points in the movie, and what we watched, Trump actually believes. We watched people who watched this movie actually think this guy, this individual, this actor who was playing the guy in the back with the backpack and the hoodie stuffing ballots, did this multiple times because they saw 3 different angles at 3 different times and thought it was one real guy 3 different times. And this is like, and again, what's going to come of this? Fucking nothing. Because Tucker can't release the rest of the footage. It will shit on his narrative. And it will, it'll spike for a little while in their, and they'll tweet about it, and they'll get smaller and smaller clips and tighter edits. But once the footage is available, somebody's going to do, especially if they fucking post some of it online. Jesus Christ. Somebody's going to do an extended cut of the edits that he did and show what he shaved off before and after.